Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing today? I'm so glad folks joined us. You know, we got a special guest, Jon Peters, and we're going to bring him on in about 10 minutes. So get your questions ready. But first, we got to just do a little quick house cleaning before we find out who's in the room with us. Now, remember that if you have a question for Jon, hashtag before your questions so that I can identify questions from just talk in the room. Brent?
Yes.
It's nice to see you, buddy.
So good to see you. How you been?
Bring your own tools, my co-host. Oh, man, I'm doing great.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Oh, man, listen, let me tell you something. I'm really excited about seeing Jon Peters.
Yeah,
I just am. I haven't seen him since Workbench Con, and I'm excited because can I tell you something, Brent? Can I tell you this? I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Jon Peters. So why don't we do this? Why don't we announce who we've got in the room here? Let's see who we have. Folks, just shout out where you're watching from in the world. Somebody came in very early, and you know what? Shaken, not stirred. I've watched this. This is a YouTube channel, man.
I gotta check her
out this YouTube channel. Well, thanks for joining us, West Seattle. See, people from Washington are chiming in. Glad to have you. Next, who else do we have, Brent?
We got quite a few more people coming in now. Oh boy.
Log cabins. Tim, are you in a log cabin? Nice to have you, Tim. Hi, Elaine. It's been a while, Elaine. You know, Elaine's a regular, and she's in North Carolina. It's nice to see you, Elaine. Folks, chime in. Tell me where you're from, Brent.
We got someone from UK.
Okay. All right. Glad to have you here. Somebody's up late. You know, I would say you're up past your bedtime.
Yeah, right.
Who else do we have?
Oh,
folks?
we got
just chime in. Tell me where
Puerto Rico.
What's that?
We got Puerto Rico.
Okay, bring them up. Oh, hey, Rod. Nice to have you, Rod.
Loving it.
Looks like we have someone from Oregon.
Oh.
Hi, Catherine. We've seen you before. I remember seeing you in other live streams.
Yeah.
Okay, Brent, let's just do a few more. Let's just recognize a few more people.
How about Brazil?
We got somebody in Brazil?
Yeah. Taka.
All right. Greetings. Glad to have you. Who else do we have here? Titletown. Hi from Titletown. Where the heck is Titletown?
Yeah, where is Titletown?
I don't know.
I have to look up 920 apparently.
Okay. Well, we already did Brazil. That was my mistake, Brent. We got Silver Springs here.
We've got California. We got basically all the West Coast apparently.
St. Augustine's, Florida. I think that's the oldest city in America, I believe. I think. I may be wrong. El Burke, it's nice to see you here. We have somebody from, now you know I've got to recognize the people from Ohio.
Of course.
I just don't know if this person is a Bengals fan or a Browns fan. But I got to say, go Browns. Go Browns.
Yeah.
We've got somebody from New Mexico.
Got a few people from Seattle tonight. New York. Hope you guys are staying well and healthy.
Boston.
Oh, you know what? There's someone that I have to say hi to.
Okay.
PG. Patty Gentling. That means that's my mom on the live stream.
Your mom's watching.
Yeah.
Hi, Brent's mom. Okay. Well, folks, we're going to wrap it up. We have Tucson, Arizona. We've got Lynn from Kentucky, Mary from Washington, Yakima, Washington. Somebody's saying, oh, wait, I got to recognize this person. I just have to. Kat Quinn. Go Browns. You're right. Okay, folks, let's get with it. Okay, let's get with it. let's start by first. You know what? I got to thank the first responders, and I've got to thank the nurses and doctors. Thank you so much for what you do. I really, really appreciate it. Next, I want to just remind people, if you're just coming to the live stream, folks, listen, hashtag your question for Jon so that I can excuse me, so that I can distinguish between questions and just chat in a room. The next thing is Brent is going to announce our winners from last week's contest. And he's also going to announce how today's happy hour specials are going to go, because we've got some tools we're going to give away today. So it would make sense to ask questions or make some kind of comment in the, well, Brent, why don't you tell them how they can win the happy hour specials and what they are?
Yeah, so everyone, thank you all so much for joining us. If you do want to enter into the happy hour special today that we will be giving away at the end of this live stream, please leave some type of comment in the live stream on the side right here. As you can see, this whole feed that's going up and down, all those people will be entered into the giveaway and will have the opportunity of getting today's prize, which is a workshop guided field sharpener. Now, if you haven't seen this, go check out Leah's channel, because she just recently did a review of this product on her own channel. It's a really slick knife sharpener that we are actually giving away 5 of them today. There will be 5 winners at the end of today, which is amazing and a nice little giveaway.
And the company that provided those field sharpeners, I have to give them a shout out.
Yeah, WorkSharp.
WorkSharp. They provided the giveaways for today's happy hour special.
Which is amazing, yes. Would you like me to get into last week's winners?
Please do.
Yes, let's go ahead and talk about last week's winners real quickly. Maker Pipe was our sponsor that week, and we were very grateful for their unique system. We wanted to give away a couple more systems because we did give away 2 units last week. We're giving away 2 this week, and the winners of those are Mrs. Pecker as well as Welsher Schoonhover. Now, if you are listening, please reach out to me and actually let me know what your address is. Go ahead and email me at brent@byotools.me. However, if you aren't on here, then I will personally try and reach out to you and make sure you get your prizes.
Okay. Brent, I want to say this about questions, okay?
Yes.
T. Williams asked a question about wallpaper removal off of plaster walls. Now, I want to say this. We're going to take general questions, but at the end. And, well, listen, let me just do this because he chimed in very early. Let me just answer his question real quick, Brent, before we bring Jon on. Let's pull it up so people can see it. But folks, for the first part of the live stream, let's just take some questions that have to do with woodworking, and then we'll get on to general questions at the end of the live stream. So you want to know about removal of wallpaper off plaster walls. The house was built in 1920. You got a lot of different routes you can take. A lot of people think that steamers are a good way to go, but I have to tell you, the steaming pad is probably about this big. And so if you use a steamer, you're going to only be able to remove a small amount at a time, and you're going to get a lot of burns. Have you used those steamers, Brent, to remove wallpaper?
I haven't used them. I basically, every time that I have a wall that has very condensed wallpaper that was not coming off easy, I basically just take the drywall off with it because it's a nightmare to try and take off.
Plaster walls. So my suggestion to you is this: fabric softener in hot water, roll it on, let it soak up. Then you're going to have to get a tool that's going to score through the paper a little bit.
I have used that before.
Solution soak in, and then you hit it again with this hot water and fabric softener, and then it just comes off like butter. It'll be easy. I don't wouldn't really suggest any harsh chemicals, and I wouldn't suggest a steamer unless, of course, you just got really tons of layers and layers of wallpaper. Then you might want to go that route, but it's a big hassle. It's a big hassle, and you wind up getting a lot of burns.
Well, luckily these days they actually make a removable wallpaper, which I've used recently. I did a video on, and it's pretty amazing, the beauty of wallpaper these days, as well as the fact that you can actually remove it easier.
Okay. I think I've seen that product. So, folks, are we ready to bring Jon Peters on? Just remember, if you have a question for Jon, hashtag so I can distinguish between questions and just talk in the room. All right. So how you doing, Jon? I'm so glad.
Thanks so much for having me here.
So glad you could join us. I'll tell you what, we have a couple questions that we want to ask you before we start taking questions from the live stream. So Brent, what do you got for Jon?
Oh, I got to start right off the bat. Oh boy. Well, Jon, I had to do some digging. Of course, with any of our guests, we have to do a little digging. And lo and behold, I took a look at your channel, and amazing, beautiful pieces of woodworking projects all over the board. You are very talented. However, your most popular video on YouTube is not a woodworking project.
Wow.
It is how to
wait. Don't tell them. Do you know what it is, Jon? Do you know what it is?
It's the concrete video.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. How random is that the most popular video on your entire channel is how to pour a concrete slab?
Almost didn't make the video. It's that same, that old story where, well, I need to put a concrete pad out because I put a shed on it. That's the main question I always get. What's the concrete pad for? I put a shed there for my dust collection.
Yep.
And I just decided, okay, well, I'll shoot it, but I'm not going to talk. And I think people just find it relaxing because the job gets done and everything gets cleaned up.
Yeah.
All in one day.
Well, everyone, if you haven't checked it out, please do, because apparently 11 million people have.
Crazy. I wish I knew the secret.
Wow, yeah, 11 million views on a concrete pad.
Yeah.
Well, are we ready for our first question from the live stream? Okay, here we go. Jon, this comes from Take, I believe. When using nails or screws to fasten a wood piece to another, how to prevent it from spinning on its axis?
How to prevent the wood from spinning?
I'm guessing.
Using nails and I don't know. Do you understand that question?
Using nails or screws to fasten or wood pieces to another. How to prevent it from spinning on its axis. I think he's talking about making sure one piece is not spinning as you're screwing into it.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. So like the wood doesn't start to spin with the screw.
Exactly.
So often I'll clamp the parts. So they're clamped in place. They're pre-drill and countersunk. And often when I'm just putting plywood boxes together for cabinets, I will tack the parts in place with an 1.25 inch nail before I screw the joint together for a stronger joint. And basically, as you know, whenever you put two glued surfaces together, they have a tendency to kind of want to walk around on you a little bit.
Yep.
And by just hitting it with 2 or 3 nails, that's an easy hole to repair, and it keeps the parts in place while you get a chance to get that stronger connection with the screw. I hope I answered that.
I think you did.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from D. Dez. Best affordable 14-inch bandsaw. What say you, Jon?
I've got a very old Delta that I hope to replace soon with a Rikon. The Rikon,
yeah.
I like the
maybe
Rikons.
about $1,400, or maybe like it's $1,100 or $1,200. And the thing with tools is you can probably get a bandsaw for $300 or $400, but it really comes down to how much you're going to use it, how much you want to spend, and what kind of quality you want to go for. I mean, you can spend $1,100 on a bandsaw, and you can probably spend $3,000 on a bandsaw. But the 14-inch Rikon looks good to me. That's the one I'm eyeballing right now.
I like that brand myself. Folks, here's the thing. It's quickly approaching yard sale and garage sale time, and you can get great deals at yard sales and garage sales on good tools. So keep your eyes open. Sure. You don't have to purchase brand new. You can always get something really good that's used. You just got to look. And
my table saw I purchased 25 years ago for $1,500, and it's just been a great saw.
What kind of saw is it?
Yeah,
it's a Powermatic cabinet saw, 3 horsepower. Yeah, it's a good saw. Everybody says it's a dangerous saw because it doesn't have a riving knife.
Oh.
And I worked in a cabinet shop starting at the age of 17, and I actually never used a table saw on a regular basis that had a riving knife. My job site saw does have a riving knife, and if I ever replace this, I'll get one. It's just the only way to put a riving knife on the saw is to actually put it on the zero clearance insert.
I've seen those. Yeah. I've seen those.
And that kind of gives you another issue because raising the blade, things like that.
Are you a little nervous sometimes when you're cutting large stock?
My rule of thumb with the table saw is always keep your left hand out and back. Never put your left hand in front of the blade. That's how I got tagged 20 years ago, trying to a small piece was kind of drifting away, kind of made that mistake of putting the hand up there, and when the piece shot back, it pulled my finger over it. Luckily, it was just, a couple of Band-Aids, really. I don't even think I got stitches. But I know I have friends, and I know plenty of people who have been hurt on the tables. I think that's the most dangerous tool in the shop.
I think you're right. Early in my career, I remember working in a shop, and I had a full sheet of 5/8" plywood that I was cutting on it was an old Rockwell table saw, and it didn't have a riving knife either, and I was just real green and didn't know better. And it sailed on me. And why I wasn't, why it didn't take my head off, I was very, very lucky. It shook me up. An entire 4x8 sheet of plywood sailed maybe just inches above my head. I was very, very lucky.
Well, apparently we all have our own table saw story, because I've definitely gotten a couple stitches from a table saw. Luckily, I have all 10 fingers, and it wasn't a big deal. It was literally just a nick, but a nick will still get you, and it'll still need.
A nick will still get you.
Stitches,
you're right. You're right. We could go on and on about this. So let's take another question. And this comes from Elaine. She said, should I use spacers to even out the drywall around windows to put up my white oak molding?
I don't have a good answer on that, because it's so, you really have to see the space. How much of a reveal are we talking about? Are we talking about an 1/8 of an inch or 5/8 of an inch? Is it spacers behind the drywall or spacers behind the molding?
Spacers. Elaine, listen, can you just clarify it a little bit more for us if you get a chance to ask that question again? Should I use spacers to
me, it sounds like
drywall? Oh, you know what I think she's asking? I think she's asking, is she asking about shims? Is she asking about shimming the drywall out so it sits flat, so when she trims the window, the trim is resting flat?
It's definitely a lot easier to deal with something like that with its painted molding. But in this situation, to me, it seems like you would want the sheetrock to be flush with the jamb. And to do that, you would want it. That really comes when you're putting the drywall onto the wall.
Okay. I hope that helped, Elaine.
The other thing is to backband the molding. That's another way, because when I renovated an old house, you would end up with uneven walls, and then you could just backband it, and you could cope it too if you wanted.
Yeah.
Cope it, scribe it.
For sure.
Okay, we've got an interesting question for you, Jon. And this comes from Kathleen. She said, thank you all for your inspiration to build things with our hands. Jon, if you were not a woodworker, what would you do? That's an excellent question.
Well, more than anything, I'm a painter, which I don't talk about too much on this channel, but I had an art gallery for 19 years, and I'm still in the art business, and I still make contemporary paintings. And what happened was the internet came and the business changed, and the way we would sell paintings wasn't with a client coming into the gallery. They would either the designer might visit, or the architect. But generally with these paintings, both parties in the relationship would need to see the painting. It's not the kind of painting where you would walk out with it under your arm. So I started doing something that I call digital installation, where I would go and photograph the client's home and then digitally install the artwork. And then if I didn't have anything that the designer or the architect or the homeowner liked, then I would make a small maquette, maybe the size of my phone, and then I would expand it to the size of the room and then make it. And that's what I do. I still do that. So I'll make little maquettes. But what I always say is all of my paintings start in the shop, because a lot of them are made on what is described as a braced panel. It's basically like it's basically just a panel with some bracing, and I might attach steel to it, I might attach aluminum to it, or maybe canvas. So it's all based in woodworking, but I paint a lot. And I love that. Landscape paintings.
Okay. All right.
That's what I really want to do. When I retire, I just want to spend all my time in my art studio and sometimes go down into the wood shop to build a piece of furniture or make a frame.
I got to tell you, that's a little surprising, Jon. I'm surprised by that.
Jon, do you have a website for your art?
I have an Instagram. It's just Jon Peters Art.
Okay, I'll check it out now.
Yeah, I just started it because a client was like, it's really hard to find your artwork in your Instagram, and you should make an art Instagram. So I did. I just started it like 2 months ago.
I'll check it out now.
Okay, that was an excellent question. Folks, I just want to remind people to put a hashtag before the question so I can distinguish between questions in the room and just talking. Now, Elaine, I see that you are trying to clarify the question that you asked, but let me just take this one question before I get back with you, Elaine. This comes from our brother. Do you guys have a recommendation on air compressor brand? I was going to go with Ingersoll Rand, but have heard the quality has gone downhill as far as the motor. Any suggestions?
I'll tell you what I just bought, and it was just based on price, really. I bought the Porta-Cable 6-gallon pancake because it came with 2 nail guns and a stapler. It was one of these, it might have been a Black Friday deal or something, and I bought it because my compressor broke.
I literally bought the same exact one, Jon. I bought the same exact one with multiple nail guns, best value, as well as like with all my tools that I purchase. It's normally I always look at the reviews, and it had great reviews, great price. It's a win-win in my book.
I think it really depends on what you're going to do, though. If you're going to paint with your compressor, you need a large compressor. Yeah. So I just think it depends. If you're just going to be just using a nail gun, you could probably get away with a pancake compressor. And so in terms of name brands, kind of depends on the size of the compressor. But I think that Jon and Brent gave you good advice. Okay, Elaine, let's see.
As far as painting, can I just, if I was going to do any spray painting, I would use a turbine sprayer. I used to use a compressor. Yeah. Turbine is so easy.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
You don't have to clean the paint. You don't have to clean the air. Plug it into the wall.
I saw the demonstration at Workbench Con, and I was really, really impressed. Okay, we're going to get back with Elaine here, Jon. She's clarifying her questions. Spacers behind the molding. The drywall is finished and off by at least 1/8 of an inch. We have some paper product that can be used as shims.
It's not something I'm familiar with.
Spacers behind the molding.
The only way I would be doing that potentially would be trying to rip shims on my table saw to fit behind the molding. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I've had to deal with that when I specifically was replacing all the windows in my house, because inevitably when you remove the window and then install a new window, then you do have to like increase the thickness of the actual molding around the casing in order to make sure you have a nice flush seam all the way across. And these shims that I like, that I've had really good luck with, it's more the composite shims. You know, sometimes I use the wood shims, but the composite shims I feel like are pretty nice because you don't have to worry about them breaking so often, especially in the smaller cavities, because the thinner the shim, the easier it seems like it's going to break, especially if it's a wood shim.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with that.
Okay, folks. Here's our next question. It comes from Kat Quinn. She says, I love making fairy garden furniture. I'm thinking about getting a mini wood lathe. Can you recommend one that would be used for miniatures? Thank you.
Again, I like that little Rikon. I have a different one. I forget the name brand. It's not expensive, but it has a little bit of a vibration. I actually used it yesterday. But I've heard pretty good things about the Jet mini lathe and the Rikon.
I use who do I use? Rockler. Rockler put out a mini lathe, and actually I like it. You know, it's fine. It gets back to budget, folks.
Yeah.
It gets back to budget. You can get a really inexpensive wood lathe and just experiment. And then if you find that you really like it, then you can move up to more pricey lathes, because they can really be expensive or they can be really inexpensive. You know what? Wynn came out with a really inexpensive mini lathe for like a couple $100. So you could make the investment into something like that. Just see if you like it first, and then you could easily move up. Brent, what do you have? What kind of lathe do you have?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that also as a general suggestion is also take a look at auctions in your area, because there's always a few random auction houses in larger areas, and that's where I found my lathe. I still need to fix it, but I literally picked up what normally would be a $700 lathe at least, and I got it for $100 on an auction house. So it was absolutely perfect. And I need to start working on my lathe skills. That's for sure.
It's a lot of fun. You know what? I could go in my shop and just get on my lathe all day. It's very relaxing. I love it. Our next question.
What were you going to say, Jon? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, it sounds to me like a benchtop lathe would be the choice, though, a smaller benchtop lathe.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, Mike wants to know, do you recommend a portable table saw or more expensive stationary table saw?
It depends what you're doing. If you're going on from job site to job site, a portable table saw. And if you've got a place where you can keep your tools and leave them, I like having a cabinet saw. It's just a little bit more solid. And I literally use my table saw almost every day of the week, even on the weekends. And it's just always where it is. So there's a dependability there. If you're going to set up a shop, think of your table saw as the heart of the shop, and kind of build everything around that.
Yeah, especially if you have a big enough shop. Yeah, it's so nice to have one of those cabinet saws. I personally don't have one, but one day I will definitely have to invest in one of those.
Well, I got the hybrid, and I really like it. It's like a cross between a contractor's saw and a cabinet saw made by Laguna. I'm really happy with mine.
A lot of times, it's what you get used to.
It is.
Start using something, you get comfortable with something. Because even though this is a Powermatic 66, I could go and use it with a friend of mine who has the same saw. It's a little bit different. It's like a bicycle. It's like anything. You kind of what you get used to.
Okay.
Well, since we're on real quickly, Leah, since we're on table saws, Jon, since I have you on here, what do you think of SawStop and that technology?
Everybody who says to me they're going to get into woodworking, what table saws should I buy? I tell them a SawStop. And I tell them that because more than half the people I know who've gotten into woodworking have cut their hand or got injured some way, and it was on the table saw.
Yep.
Now, all the tools are dangerous. The main thing with woodworking is to always slow down. I always just say to myself, slow down. Even when I'm looking at my videos, sometimes just a simple procedure takes 3.5 minutes. Now, I'm not going to put that in the video, but that's because I'm always trying to be methodical, because a real waste of time and waste of money is when you get injured. So you slow down, you do things nice and easy.
Yep. No, that's so true. The one time that I cut myself on a table saw was because I was rushing a project and I was trying to get out the door and cut a few last things, and the last piece I was cutting, zinc.
Yeah. It's funny. The thing that really impressed me about SawStop is the owner. He put his thumb to the test to show you the technology really worked. I mean, you have to really believe in your product to put one of your digits in front of a blade. But,
you better be confident on that one.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that video, Jon?
I did see that. Everybody has seen the hot dog, but I saw that one too, where he kind of just goes real slow. It looks like his hand in the video. It looks like his hand is very wet, which is what you would want, because it just the saw recognizes anything that will conduct electricity and then turns off. So there's a plus there, because you're not going to cut your finger off if everything's working right. But if you hit a staple in a piece of plywood or you hit something else, it's going to hit that trigger and you're going to waste a blade and waste a cartridge. So it's great technology. I highly recommend it to anybody getting into woodworking. I'll probably have a SawStop one day, because my boys are older, and that's the only tool that I don't let them use. I don't let them use the jointer, because they don't really need to use the jointer. But I don't let them use the table saw. They can use my miter saw. When the blade comes down, the guard goes up, things like that. But the table saw,
I noticed recently you were working in the shop with one of your sons. You guys were building cabinets together.
I let him use a table saw when the crosscut sled is set up.
Okay. Yeah, so I saw it. It was a huge crosscut sled.
Yeah.
And I was curious. So, do your children are they passionate about woodworking, or not so much?
No, they're all pretty creative. They're all musical, and they're all sort of surfers and skaters, and they play music. My oldest guy works in New York, works for a bank in New York, but he's home now because of this situation. But they don't. I think when they get their own home, I think when they need to use those skills, they will, because they can build things, and they do. Like my youngest son is really into bicycling, so he'll use all the sawzall and the drills and everything like that to build ramps.
Okay.
So if he has a desire, but they don't want to build a piece of furniture.
I'll tell you what, my son, when he was when not yet is right. But my son Roman, I'll tell you what, he has no interest whatsoever. He came out to the shop with me. He was in the Cub Scouts, and they do this this was a few years ago. This was about 4 or 5 years ago that he was in the Cub Scouts. And they do this pine box derby where you have to, oh, you know about it, build a race car out of
I remember
block of pine wood. And I was more excited than he was. I was like, boom, and we could do it this way, and we need to do this to the wheels. And I think I built that car for him,
Sure.
Oh yeah, no, trust me, I already have those thoughts. I got a baby girl coming on the way, and those thoughts of building with her, and then I'll probably be taking over a project 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, we got another question here from Mama Moore. She says, what could I use if I wanted a brick wall in my kitchen? I love that look. You mean like this wall right here?
Oh yeah, I think she's talking to you, Leah.
I got it. You know what? This is mid-century modern house, and I don't know why the owners before put these fake bricks up, but they're like plaster. They're like little plaster bricks. What I will say though, and this is a product that I don't like these fake bricks, but there is a product that I do like. They take actual bricks and they just slice them. Have you either one of you seen this product?
Oh yeah. Brick
little
veneers.
Thin slices of actual brick. And I would recommend that. If that's a look that you like, that's a product you need to check out because it looks like a real brick wall because you are using real brick, just very thin slices.
There's a couple companies that I recently reached out to. One is called Brickit, and they have a really amazing selection of real brick, as well as a really slick installation system too. If you're looking for a very DIY friendly installation, check them out because they literally have a metal panel that you put on the wall first, and then you literally just put some construction adhesive on the back side of the brick, and you just boom, 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 get a whole wall done in a couple hours. It's pretty incredible.
Okay, folks, we've got another question here. It's from Michael. And folks, let me just remind you, use a hashtag before your question so I can identify questions from just talk in the room. I understand people are joining the live stream and maybe they didn't hear that announcement, but if you would do that for me, it would make it so much easier. So Michael wants to know, do you go to college for building?
I didn't.
Okay.
I went to art school, but I think when it comes to building, if you have a real desire, a real passion, and you prove to your boss that you're valuable, you'll go up the ranks and you'll learn and you'll just be able to do it. But you have to have that passion. You have to be able to work, willing to work really hard and always bring a great attitude to work. That's the main thing that I always felt when I worked in construction and cabinet making. It's you want to be you want to add to the environment, not take away from it.
Yeah, no, great advice. And obviously on my front, I did go to college for construction management and I did get a job through that. But let's be honest, being a builder at school doesn't really teach you anything about actually building something. Once you get out in the real world, that's where you really learn the tricks of the trade and so forth, especially if just, John, like you said, you have that good attitude, that good mindset, the hard work, the grit and determination, just, within any industry in life, you have to make sure you bring that to the table. But being in the trades itself, making sure you just, are out there and eager to learn and listen is very important.
That's the trick. I'll tell you what, though, I am a big fan of apprenticeship programs, so if you could find
sure.
Good, if it's cabinet making that you're interested in, you can get into a good apprenticeship program.
That's what I did. When I was in high school, I worked with a cabinet maker. So I went to school until noon, and then I worked with a cabinet maker from, I think, 12:30 to 6 o'clock for my last 2 years of high school. It was a lot of work, but I learned so much from this man. I'm still good friends with him to this day.
Everybody, I hear you, John.
That's amazing, John.
He wasn't an easy boss, though. Trust me.
No,
I often didn't
God,
like
I've
him when I
been
was
there.
working for him because
I've been there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I learned over. I learned under a guy named Ted Mack, and I got to tell you, he was a hard character to deal with. But man, I got to tell you, he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot.
I had the same exact experience. It's so funny. Yeah, the ones that are the hard asses are always the ones that you learn the most from.
Sure.
Okay, we've got another question here. Nope.
Oh, we already got
We
that
already
one.
did that one. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, sometimes I have a problem seeing the feed. Okay, so question: best method to join wood to make it one piece. Any ideas? I think I will use screws at an angle, but I want it strong since I don't have dowels or a biscuit joiner. You know.
Well, you don't need to use a biscuit joiner to join boards together. You can just clamp it and use clamps on both ends, which would be like coals, to keep the boards level and so you so they're nice and flush. The biscuit joiner just makes that easy because it keeps the boards flush. I'm a big fan of the biscuit joiner. Some people aren't.
I'm not.
I just like a biscuit. It just to me seems like such a good time saver. But there's a few things you need to know because you can make mistakes with a biscuit joiner just like any tool.
Yeah, well, John, it's funny that brings it up because I did recently watch one of your videos before I took on a project about how to use a biscuit joiner, of course, because one of my most popular videos that I've ever done on my channel was how to make a walnut dining room table. And I didn't use biscuits for that project, but of course, you know, it's one of my most popular videos, and every other comment is, why didn't you use biscuits? Well, the reason why I didn't at that point was because biscuits don't add any strength and stability to a slab. And that's what I thought. And I just thought it was going to it would take more time and energy to do so. But I had to just recently build a 19-foot long countertop out of white oak. And I decided, okay, I need to make this a little bit easier on myself. So I got a biscuit joiner, and it really does save a lot of time and energy trying to make sure it's fully flat after you glue it up, because that's the real issue with it, is that it makes it perfect. You know, it doesn't make it perfect, but the sanding and the ordeal of trying to make sure it's perfectly flat afterwards, it's much less of a headache at that point.
That's my experience.
Okay, we've got another question here and I think this is a good question.
I'm glad you grabbed this because I was going to tell you to grab this one.
If you could only have one, would you have a joiner or a planer?
Probably a jointer. I haven't had a planer for a long time. I just recently got one, and I've been doing okay with just the jointer, and that's because, for the most part, I buy my wood S4S, which is surfaced on 4 sides.
Yep.
I don't buy my wood in the rough. I just don't want to take that extra time milling. When I go to the lumber yard, I'm fortunate enough to have a lumber yard relatively close to me with a great selection. They have a pretty large S4S selection, and if I'm making a tabletop, if I can see the grain, I can really match the grain up because it's already been surfaced. So, and I have a very small shop. My wood shop interior space is about 25 by 15 and a half.
Oh, so you have to be selective about the equipment that you have.
And where I do have a little area that's off to the side of the building that is in the process of becoming more of a finishing room. But yeah, so it's a small shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't have a lot of big machinery. I do have a table saw, a jointer, and most of my tools are sort of small, but my lathe is a benchtop lathe. The bandsaw is a 14-inch bandsaw. Mm-hmm. And I'm fine. I think maybe it's the older you get, the less you want. I just don't want a lot of stuff. I want to have I'm a less is more mentality. This is a big enough shop. I don't want any more overhead. I don't want any more things to think about. This has been working for me.
That's very important. And I want to say this, Jon, because you're really telling people, look, Jon is a master at building furniture. And he's saying that he has a modest shop. And it just goes to show you, folks, that you don't need to have every tool under the sun to build quality items, you know? So I think that's what you're saying is really important.
Yeah.
Okay, Dee's got a question here, but I want to say this before we get to Dee's question. Folks, listen, it is last call. So if you got a question for Jon, you hashtag it now, because we're going to stop taking questions pretty soon. This is last call for questions, and then we're going to announce the happy hour special prize winners. There going to be 5, Brent, 5 winners.
That's correct.
And it's going to be random. We're going to select the winners from the comments, and it's going to be totally random. So Dee wants to know, what wood do you use to make a kitchen cabinet door?
Okay, so I'm going to give one answer for a painted cabinet, and I'm just going to throw a design, let's just say a shaker design, a very simple frame and panel door. So for a painted cabinet, I would use birch plywood for the panel, and I would use poplar for the frame. For a natural or stained finished cabinet, I would use whatever the species is that you want. So if you want that sort of warm reddish brown, I would use cherry, and I would keep it natural. And again, I would use cherry plywood on the center panel, and I would use cherry on the frame. Same thing with maple, same thing with walnut.
Okay. All right, Chris wants to know, my backyard patio has 3 wooden support posts surrounded by an outdoor sheetrock. Now the wood is rotten and the sheetrock is falling off. Well, I got to tell you, you're going to have to replace the supports.
You're going to have to jack it up, support it, and then rip everything out and find out where the problem. It sounds to me like a moisture problem. Mm-hmm. So it could be a roof problem. It could be a grading problem. Sounds like water.
Mm-hmm. And you might want to consider, when you replace those supports, you can do it. You can do it yourself, you know. You may want to select a wood that's rot resistant, you know. You may want to consider that.
Specifically in mind, making sure that there's no wood that's actually in contact with the ground. I don't know what kind of layout it is, but I think especially if the wood is rotting, number one, make sure it's pressure treated, or number 2, making sure it doesn't have any ground contact.
Okay. Next question. Oh, but let me just say this really quick. It's a job that's going to take you all day to do, and you're going to have help, you know, but it's certainly something that you can manage yourself. The most important thing is, like what Jon said, you're going to have a jack. You're going to have a jack. Raymond says, I failed to glue the seams of polystyrene crown molding. What can I do now to seal and cover them? Love the show. Well,
I've never used that kind of material.
I have to honestly tell you, I have not either. I failed to glue the seams. Crown molding, what can I do now to seal and cover them? Well, my guess is it's something that is pre-painted. I'm guessing. Why don't you do this, Raymond? Chime in again and let me know. Are these crown molding that are finished, or is it something that you will paint later? That's what I need to know, okay? So chime back in. I appreciate it. Make it easier for your question to be answered. Okay, let's see what we got. Last call, folks. Maybe 5 more minutes of questions, and then we've got to move on to the happy hour winners. Let's see what we have here. This is from Kathleen. If I may, one more question. I work outdoors, no shop. I made a bench with storage. What would you recommend as a top? Oh.
Okay, I'll just tell you what I have. I have a welder that has been outside for 3 years now. I made the cabinet out of plywood, painted it really well. And for the top, I used Baltic birch plywood, which is sold in a 5x5 foot sheet, and just put a ton of paint on it and put a drip cap on the bottom. What a drip cap is it's a little groove about 1/2 inch in on the bottom. And what that will do is instead of the water rolling and then rolling underneath, it's going to hit that groove and fall to the ground. And so I've had my welder out there for 3 years now. So a good amount of storage. I have a video on YouTube, I think, where I made it, and works great.
Okay.
Love that. That's a great tip. I'll have to try that one.
Works great.
Okay, G wants to know what tools should be used to cut plexiglass.
I've used two tools. For rough cutting, 3 tools actually. For rough cutting, I'll use a utility knife, score one side, flip it over, score the other side, and snap it. I'll use the table saw. Sometimes people will put the blade in backwards on the table saw, and I've done that. I don't do that anymore. I just put at least a 60-tooth blade on, so there's a lot of teeth. And then the other tool that you can use for cutting plexiglass is a router. So you could back a piece of plexiglass or overhang a piece of plexiglass off of a piece of plywood and then use a flush cut router and follow that pattern.
Jon, do you have to have some type of special or routing bit for plexiglass?
No, it cuts it great.
Perfect. No, that's good to know.
Okay, folks, we've got 2 more questions, and then that's going to have to be it. Suntan Creations wants to know, for beginners, what type of wood do you recommend for practice on?
2, pine, because it's going to be readily available. You'll be able to get that at your home store. I never suggest painting pine because inevitably there's going to be a knot or there's going to be sap in the wood, and that's going to bleed through the paint. So if it's going to be a painted project, use poplar. Poplar's, it's in the hardwood family, but it's soft, it's very easy to work, and it's very straight.
As well as it being probably a little cheaper than other.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is our last question. And then Brent is going to announce happy hour winners, and we're going to say goodbye to Jon. The last question comes from Jay. He or she wants to know, I would like to know if the door frame should be cut out and a block of wood inserted if the screw holes are enlarged.
I'm going to assume that he's talking about the hinge screws being stripped.
I'm guessing.
Let's say that. Well, what you could do is you could make a wedge with epoxy and just tap it in there and fill the holes with wood.
Yeah, that's an easy fix, and I agree with you, Jon. Or some toothpicks or wooden matches work really well.
Even a dowel, a little wooden dowel, sharpen up one end, bang it in there with some glue, let it set up, trim it down, and you'd be good to go.
That's an easy fix. Yep. Jon, listen, I just want to thank you. I'm so glad you stopped by and did this live stream with us. It was such a pleasure to have you here, and we had a lot of great questions this
Thanks for having me.
What's that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jon.
Oh, it was all our pleasure. Just our pleasure. Okay, Jon, we'll see you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jon.
Okay, folks, everybody hang on because, I forgot to ask him how he wanted us to follow him. Listen, let me ask you this, Brent. Do you know by chance?
We'll just know real quickly, I did leave links in the description box below this video, so you can take a look and see his YouTube page, his website, his Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon page.
Thanks, Brent. Thank you so much. Okay, Brent.
No problem.
It's that time, my friend. It's that time to announce the happy hour special winners.
That is right. And if you're just joining us, so we are going to be giving away 5 Work Sharp guided field sharpeners. Now, this is the system that Leah personally actually did a video on, a video review, which she did very recently. So please check that one out if you are not one of the winners. However, if you are, I did put some names up. So Tom O'Donnell, D. Diz, Wan Yang, the American Wanderer, and Mama Moore. You are all the winners of the happy hour special this week. So please send your emails, or please send me an email at brent@byotools.me, and I will make sure those get sent out to you directly. If I don't hear from you, I'll make sure and try and reach out to you after this live stream, but inevitably, please try and email me first.
Hey, Brent, who provided the guided field sharpeners again?
That is Work Sharp themselves. So they are the
Okay.
ones that designed and manufactured this device, and they were pleasantly very happy to provide them for our live stream.
Okay. I got to tell you, I love the tool. I love it.
Yeah, I got to try it out myself.
One more time, Brent. One more time, if you would tell folks how to reach out to you. Just repeat that. So.
Yes. So please, again, email me at brent@byotools.me.
Okay. Now, folks, before we go, Brent, who is next week's special guest?
So next week's special guest is Jess from Crow Design, and she actually specializes in epoxy. Yes, epoxy. She does incredible work with wood and epoxy, and I can't wait because that's something that I'm really passionate in now. And inevitably, she is an all-star. She has an amazing Instagram following, and the pieces of work that she creates are more pieces of art than anything else.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited to talk to her, and I hope you join us. Everybody that was here today, join us next week for our live stream dealing with epoxy. But for now, I just want to say to folks, be safe out there. Brent, I'll see you next week, buddy. Bye,
Thanks for joining us. Oh, hi. Oh, hi.